Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today I am going to talk to y'all about, is traditional publishing still viable? So this is a question that I have seen hanging around in a lot of the writing community forums, as well as there have been a lot of articles about it too. So I would say it depends. Unfortunately, fortunately, as I've talked about in some of my other videos, self-publishing is a thing. And very much unfortunately, AI is a thing. And people's desire to write books has grown tremendously. And in the spirit of it is a good thing. We love that. But sometimes in practice, it's not a good thing. And what all of these things mean and what they have to do with traditional publishing is that for the longest time, traditional publishing was really your only avenue to being able to make your stories into actual books that people could actually go out and buy and read or pick up at a library and read, whatever have you. And now we have the ability to just publish on our own behalf via self-publishing, whether that's through Ingram or Amazon or any of the other avenues that they have out there today. There's so many other ways to get your book out there that don't require all of the red tape of the traditional publishing industry. Now, just to clarify, what exactly is the traditional publishing industry? It is the traditional publishing avenue where you have to have a completed manuscript that is 100% ready to go. It's been edited, it's been carefully combed over, you've carefully considered what your audience is, your marketing plan, like all that stuff. Like you're like, this is my book, I know what I'm all about, I know what the book's all about, da-da-da. And you go and you research different publishing houses, you find one that you feel is a good fit for your book. So that means that the size of the publishing house, depending on where you're at as an author, is this your first book? Is this your fifth book? Is this your 50th book? All those things are important consideration for what level of the publishing that you should go for. Also, different publishing houses specialize in different things. There are some publishing houses that only publish sci-fi. There's some that only publish fantasy. There's some that only publish literary stuff. Don't submit your sci-fi novel to a place that only publishes romance novels because you will get insta-rejected because you didn't bother to read their website. Stuff like that. And once you submit your manuscript, hopefully you submitted it properly, then it goes into what's called a slush pile. Back in the day, it was a physical thing. So you don't send off your entire brick of a manuscript because ain't nobody got time for that. You send off specifically what the publisher tells you to send them, typically on their website. And that's usually some sort of cover letter letting them know, hey, hello, I'm author so-and-so, and this is why I'm great, and this is why my story is great. I hope you enjoy it. And then you either send them the first 10 pages or the first chapter, whatever it is they specify. So it's an envelope. Back in the day, they were those brown manila envelopes with the little metal thingies. You used to send those, and there was a literal slush pile of those things, a mountain of those envelopes just in the middle of the mail room. And they had interns where their entire job was to sit there and pull those envelopes out of this giant pile in the middle of the room and go through them. And you have all of like 10 seconds to get their attention. First off, did you follow proper formatting and proper rules? Because that's insta rejection if you didn't. If they say that they want black 12-point Times New Roman font and you decide that you want to have purple curly Q style font, instantly in the trash because they have thousands to go through in the slush pile. They don't have time for people that can't follow directions. And then if you pass that test of you just follow directions, congratulations. Then they read over your cover letter. Does this sound like something that they as a publishing house would care about? And they have a list of criteria of these are the kinds of authors and stories that we're looking for right now. You don't meet those criteria that you're not even going to know about. They don't typically publicize that. So you don't even know these magic rules that they've decided for the next hurdle. So if you somehow make these rules that you don't even know about, congratulations. Then they read over your chapter or pages or whatever, and if they are like, yeah, this sounds great, then they send it off to their supervisor, who is usually one of the editors there, and then they look it over, and then if they deign to care and think, wow, this is great. Then they'll contact you and ask you for a partial submission. So this usually means something like, send us the first 5 chapters of your book. Send us the first half of your book, whatever. It's just part of it. And if they read over that and they like it, then they'll send it up to somebody higher up, or if it's a smaller publishing house, they'll just read it over. And if they like it, then they'll ask for a full submission. That means your whole brick of a manuscript, and then they'll read that over. And mind you, getting through these hurdles, it gets exponentially harder the higher you go through these hurdles. It's kind of like being on a game show where it just gets progressively harder and more people get voted off the island as you make it through these hurdles, because publishing houses can only publish so many books in a year. And that's really the crux of it, y'all. They can only publish so many books in a year, and not only that, they can only afford to publish so many books in a year. Now, I know what some of y'all may be thinking. There are some of these books that sell millions of copies. All of those New York Times bestsellers, Stephen King's books, She Who Shall Not Be Named, all of those big time books. Oh, but they sell dozens of books and everybody knows them and everybody loves them and they sell and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's like a teeny tiny percentage of the authors in the books in the industry as a whole. Every book is a gamble for the publisher, because even if you are an established author, your next book could flop for any number of reasons. And publishers have to be really, really certain if they want to take that gamble on you and take that gamble on your book, because it costs them money. And that's kind of where the road divides here between traditional publishing and self-publishing, is that self-publishing, you take on all those costs yourself. So paying for editors, paying for the layout artist, paying for the cover artist, paying for all the marketing. Sometimes you have to pay for other stuff, whether that's for copyright, whether that's for different codes that you want to put on, paying to submit to awards competitions. And yes, even legit award competitions, you have to pay a fee to do them. All of this stuff costs money. The publisher covers those costs for you. So they're footing the upfront bill for you. And then what you as the author have to do in return is make them that money back. And then on top of that, after you make that money back, you have to continue to make them money. So they take a percentage of the total profit that your book makes. It is very difficult for a book to not only make back that upfront cost, but surpass it. And that's why there is this gatekeeping and elitism with traditional publishing, is because by its nature, it kind of has to be that, because profits are razor thin and it is so hard to market a book and also to catch that zeitgeist wave. There's no telling whether a book will do well or not. And that's why when so many people are like, oh, these publishing companies are so stupid for not publishing so-and-so, they're such a big author now. They didn't know that. Just like Oprah said back one of her interviews where, these jobs that wouldn't hire you and blah, blah, blah. And now you're Oprah. I bet they feel stupid. And she's like, I wasn't Oprah back then. When she was like 17 years old, she wasn't Oprah back then. She was a nobody back then. Now she's Oprah. So that's the kind of thing, is that it's like right now you're a nobody. So you could be a tra-la-la, amazing, successful, famous author someday, but nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody can predict that for certain. So they have to have some sort of calculated standards that they put in place in order to figure out, okay, is this going to be a viable option? Is this something we really want to take a gamble on? So all of these factors for how traditional publishing works all comes to today, 2024. Is traditional publishing still viable? And therein lies the rub. Is because traditional publishing has to compete against self-publishing, which is where people could just be like, I'm not dealing with all that red tape and hullabaloo. I'm just going to publish my story and nobody can tell me otherwise. And off they go, which is correct. You can 100% do that and nobody can stop you. So they have to compete with that. And even if, as I said in some of my other videos, even if those books are trash, it's still competition in that those are still books that are floating around in the world on the market, and now everyone has to jump a little higher and shout a little louder in order to get attention on their books, traditional publishing houses included. So you have so more books on the market than has ever been in the history of ever. Just exponentially more books, more authors, just so much competition. And then also you have the grifters and the AI, the people who just want to put out schlock for the sake of trying to make an easy buck, which just sounds like an oxymoron. Oh yeah, writing and being an author is an easy buck. Newsflash, it's not. It is not. So for those of y'all that say that you're going to quit your job to write the next American novel and make $1 billion, please don't quit your day job. Do not do that. That is a terrible plan. Don't do that. Because again, there is no way to predict the magical zeitgeist will necessarily happen for you. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I've seen so many people do that, and it is like 99.9% of the time a terrible idea. So just yeah. There's all these like just people just peddling schlock, and that adds to the competition because it's still material that adds to everything, and people have to jump that much higher and people have to shout that much more against all of this other stuff. So the market is completely flooded with content. Whether it's good content or not is irrelevant. So these traditional publishers are having to deal with more competition than ever before. They are having to deal with that the marketing and advertising world is just evolving at lightning speed, especially with the advent of TikTok. TikTok has completely changed the way that marketing and advertising work because the nature of TikTok is that trends sometimes last for only an hour. I'm not even kidding. Literally an hour. On average, it's usually a day. A trend is for a day. So you take that into the general world beyond TikTok. Sometimes trends are as short as a week or a month. And traditional publishing houses move slowly. So slowly. To give you an idea, with the traditional publishing process, if you are lucky and you somehow make it through all of the hoops and they give you that contract to be like, hey, we're going to publish your book and you're going to be one of our authors, that whole process from when you submit your manuscript to them offering you that contract, on average, takes a year, like 12 months, a year. That's the average. That's why so many authors will work on multiple projects at once, because it's not a good use of your time to write a book and then just sit there and wait to hear back from the publisher when you might not hear back from them for as long as a year. And then at any point in the process, they can tell you thanks, but no thanks. You should be working on other stuff while you're sitting there waiting because it's going to be a while. And on top of it, you're not just necessarily going to get that contract from the first place that you submit to. Many authors have to submit to dozens of places. Stephen King famously had to submit to so many publishers before he was finally published for the first time. Like, it was ridiculous how many he had to submit to. And that was back in the day. Nowadays, it's even harder to get published by a traditional publisher because they are publishing far fewer books a year than ever before because profits are so razor thin and because the market is so flooded that it's harder for them to make money. In order to combat those razor thin profits and so that they can eke out more money, more and more of the publicity and marketing and advertising is falling on the author. So it's always been the author's responsibility. Even back in the good old days when there was just traditional publishing and vanity publishing, that was that. Even back then, you still had a certain degree of responsibility to market your own book. And what I mean by that is that it's like, absolutely go out and tell your family and friends. Absolutely seek opportunities where you can talk about your book. And if you have some sort of local standing, whether it's, maybe there's some sort of like local news channel or radio channel or whatever that, a friend of a friend can get you on to blather on about your book, do that. Publishing companies have always encouraged you to do whatever local stuff that you can to publicize your own book. However, nowadays, the amount of effort that publishing houses put into books is just going down and down and down and down. And it's gotten to the point where people have kind of looked at their options and been like, do I want to be beholden to a publishing house? What's in it for me when I can just go publish it myself and I can be in charge of everything? Sure, I have to put in 100% of the work and I have to put in 100% of the money, but I get 100% of the say. And that's where we come to the crux of, is traditional publishing still viable? It is still viable in that if you do get to be one of those lucky people that gets to be a Zeitgeist, then yeah, being a traditionally published author is awesome, because the more successful you are as a traditionally published author, the better it is for you. The more effort and money they will put into marketing and publicizing your book, because it's a sure thing. If they can just turn that magic crank and make more money, they will. But if your book's a stinker and it's not selling copies, they are not going to put in more money, time, and effort into marketing it, because they're going to be like, why? It's not going to make enough money. We tried and we failed. The end. So sad. Thanks for playing. Whereas as a self-published author, you can throw as much money and time and energy that you have access to in order to put your book out there. Whether it's going to be a winner or it's going to be a stinker, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do with it, you can do that. As well as a big thing that people are seeing that they're not liking is the having control over your book. When you're a traditionally published author, you give up control of your book. They can tell you, hey, we want this ending to be different. Hey, we don't like this character. Hey, you need to rewrite this part. And you just have to say, okay, either that or you say no to the contract. That's kind of the rub. I mean, you can advocate for yourself and be like, hey, this is my reasoning behind it and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, if they're like, nah, it's either this or no book, you have to make those choices. And then after it's published, it's not your book anymore. It belongs to the publishing house. So if you don't like the way that they're advertising it, if you don't like the light that they're putting it in, there's nothing you can do. If you don't like the people that they're bringing in to help publicize your book, because sometimes they bring in like celebrities and politicians and stuff to publicize extremely again, Zeitgeist, New York Times bestseller type of books. But if you don't like those people that they've chosen, that's too bad. You don't get a say in that. So you have to consider that. How much of your identity and how much of what you've attached to this book are you willing to compromise on? A lot of people are saying, I'm not willing to compromise on those things. I'm not willing to attach myself to these things that they might attach me to. And they're going the self-publishing route. But then here's the flip side. Major literary agents and major publishing houses still hold all the big boy cards. They're the ones that have access to the upper echelon of the publishing industry. And they're going to keep that hold until we drag it from their cold, dead fingers. I don't really see something like that happening. I don't see them relinquishing any sort of control on that, because why would they? But all of the biggest awards, all of the biggest gatherings, just all of that upper echelon stuff, which is where you make the big bucks as an author. Once you get access to that world, amazing, craziness. And no matter how successful you are as a self-published author, you can't break that glass ceiling. You can't get access to that VIP club if you're not professionally represented by a literary agent or a traditional publishing house of that caliber. That's just the way it is. And so you have to consider, is that something you care about? First of all, before you answer, is that something you care about? You also have to live in reality land and be like, is that ever something that I believe that I can ever even be a part of? And funny enough, a lot of people are realizing, you know what? No, I'm probably not. And that is the correct answer. And again, I'm sorry to burst some people's bubbles, but the majority of authors, you're going to write a few books, you're going to make some money, here and there. And for the most part, you're going to be happy because you have created a thing. You have brought it into the world for you and however many people to enjoy. And that's, at the end of the day, what writing is about. It's about bringing these stories into the world for others to enjoy, whether that's 100 people, 1,000 people, 100,000 people, 1,000,000 people. Who knows? But you have to ask yourself reasonably, who is my audience? What is my audience? What level is my audience? And once you're able to answer those things, you're going to be able to decide for yourself whether you feel it is worth chasing traditional publishing and really seeing, hey, do I have what it takes to make it and reach that glass ceiling? Or is your book really, really niche, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with niche writing. I have niche writing, but it's not going to be a New York Times bestseller. It's not going to be the next literary American novel. It's not going to be a widely read thing. Niche means small audience. If you're going to be writing something that's very specific, you're catering to a very specific audience. And that's the other thing, is that you also have to accept being able to write for profit rather than for art. And there's nothing wrong with writing for profit, which is different from the grifters, because the grifters don't actually care about writing and don't actually care about bringing anyone a good story. Writing for profit means that you go into writing a story with your eyes wide open and thinking first and foremost, okay, what's something that I can write that I know is going to appeal to a wide and varied, that's the most important thing, a wide and varied audience, that I can reach as many people as possible, that as many people as possible are going to enjoy this book. And that means it's not going to be niche. It's not going to be about something really specific. It's not going to be something that's going to be earth-shatteringly controversial. It's going to be vanilla ice cream, essentially. Think about it that way. Do you want to write vanilla ice cream? There's nothing wrong with vanilla ice cream. It's perfectly fine and delightful. But perhaps you're more of a, chocolate fudge swirled with sprinkles kind of person. But not everybody likes that, and that's okay. But as long as you're okay with being authentic with what you're going into this industry for, then that's all you need. But it's also important to recognize, what are my goals? What are reasonable goals? And what am I willing to do? So once you answer all these questions for yourself, you'll be better equipped to make those decisions of, do I want to self-publish or do I want to go down the traditional publishing route? And these things don't have to be an either or. I am both. I have self-published and I have traditionally published. You can do both, 100%. But for those books you've earmarked as traditional publishing, are you willing to give up that kind of control? I hope you all found this video helpful. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.